Hi there, my name is Delta, and today we'll be detailing everything there is to know about Five Nights at Candy's 1 but better, from the general gameplay to specific strategies, and even down to the technical mechanics of the game as well. This guide is the first to a 3-part series in which I'll be covering all of the FNAC but better games, though the second and third parts might take a little while to come out after this one. This guide will also be covering the current version of FNAC 1 but better as of this video, aka patch 2.5.3, and I've included an alternative text guide in the description down below if you want to follow along with it or just use that document entirely on its own. With all of that out of the way, let's get straight into it. So, first of all, what exactly is FNAC 1 but better? Well, to put it simply, it's a game based on the first Five Nights at Candy's entry, and it completely revamps its custom night with new and improved mechanics for each individual animatronic. As someone who really loves the FNAC series as a whole, if it wasn't obvious enough, I can say from personal experience that this mod definitely manages to actually expand the gameplay aspect of the first game very decently and make it feel like a very unique and fun experience compared to even the original Five Nights at Freddy's games. Now, on to the most basic of mechanics. When first opening up the game, you can see that on the bottom left, there are some useful hotkeys that allow you to quickly return to the menu, make your instance windowed and or full screen, or restart the night with the custom AI levels that you are on. There's also a place where you can log into your GameJolt account in order to save your scores, mainly the power records, and below all of that, there's a big reset button that, well, resets all of the levels back down to 0. On the bottom right, there are also options to enable the FNAC 1 remastered textures, which is what I personally use because I just think that it looks nicer, and uncapped AI levels, which makes it possible to go above 20 AI for all characters. The big ready button below those buttons actually takes you to the night itself, with whatever levels you set or preset you chose. To set custom AI levels for each animatronic, use your scroll wheel while hovering over one to increase or decrease their values, and to activate or deactivate an animatronic's blood mode, simply left click on it when its AI level is above 0. One more thing, there are a few buttons to take you to the 10 pre-made challenges, including the 2 max modes of this game, with the big 720 button taking you straight to 720 itself, if you weren't already on it or Blood 720. Before actually getting to the animatronics and how they work, we need to cover the power consumption of the doors and the monitor. When starting the night, you'll begin with 100% power, and each in-game hour is 1 minute long, meaning that the entire night lasts 6 minutes in total. When flipping down your monitor after any amount of usage, regardless of whether or not it was enabled, the night vision mechanic will be immediately turned off. While you're in the office doing nothing, or just using your monitor without night vision enabled, takes away 0% power. Using the monitor with night vision turned on takes away 0.25% power per second, and for each of the doors plus the ticket booth window, closing one of them initially takes away 0.5% of your power as soon as you close it, then an extra 0.5% for every second that it remains closed. Once your power reaches exactly 0%, or when Chester reaches your left door on blood mode, which I'll be covering a bit more later, the power completely goes out, and the power out sequence plays for 25 seconds before Candy jump scares you. Since this is always a fixed timer, we can actually use this to our advantage in some cases and force a power out when there's less than 25 seconds of the night remaining, though this isn't really necessary until we get to the max modes. Now it's time to get into the first big portion of this video, how every single animatronic actually works. Since this guide aims to be as detailed and comprehensive as possible, I'll be covering both the normal mode and the blood mode mechanics for each individual animatronic. Instead of the usual movement opportunities a lot of old school FNAF games use, FNAC 1 but better relies on formulas for all of its animatronics. For each one, I'll be putting up their formulas on screen when relevant, which I should mention are all in milliseconds, and then converting them to the proper intervals on 20 AI, which will just be in the standard traditional seconds. I should also mention that there are specific animatronics that, for their very first movement of the night, have a random number between 0 and 1000 added to their initial movement formula, and those animatronics are Candy, the Penguin, Old Candy, and the Rat, so keep that in mind when we get to each of them. I'll also probably put a clarification somewhere in the video for them as well. These formulas are also why the uncapped AI option exists, as it actually adds for some extra challenge in case you want to increase everyone to 25 or even 30 AI. One more thing before we move on, it's important to note that no character in this game can actually move backwards, which isn't too relevant with anyone besides Chester, which we won't cover until later on. First up is the star of the show himself, Candy the Cat. You will first start in Cam 01 and randomly pick between two paths, the left path and the right path. For each movement he makes towards your office, he uses this formula shown on screen right now, which on 20 AI is 5 seconds per movement. When reaching either Cam 06, which is your left door, or Cam 04, which is your right door, his eyes will then appear and glow like they do when viewing a camera he's on without night vision. In order to determine when to actually lock the door he's currently at, Candy uses this formula shown on screen, which takes 6 seconds on 20 AI. Then, after a certain amount of time, he'll jump scare you. This timer, big surprise, also uses a formula to determine when to end your game, which once again is being shown on screen right now. This means that on 20 AI, after jamming your door, he will kill you once exactly 4 seconds have passed. In order to reset Candy back to Cam 01, shut whichever door he's at before he gets into your office. This makes him leave immediately, which can be heard using this sound. Once he returns to the main stage, specifically after you make him leave, he'll go to the opposite path that he was on last time, meaning that he'll always switch sides back and forth throughout the night, with only the first choice being randomized. An important note is that if Candy tries to move to a camera that is currently being occupied by another animatronic, he'll instantly reset back to Cam 01. However, this doesn't apply with Chester, and we'll cover why later, unless he himself is at Cam 06, aka the left door, but at that point, you'll most likely die to him instead. Now, it's finally time to cover Candy's blood money mechanics. When enabled, he can now enter your office through the ticket booth as well as the two doors, and can break the window similar to how Blank does before jump scaring you, which technically gives you an extra 7 seconds after his second jump scare timer has already ran out. His eyes also do not glow when he reaches the window. Since this counts as a third path that Candy can take when trying to contact you about your car's extended warranty, this makes his switching side system a bit more complicated but still manageable. To put it simply, at the start of the night, Candy will now pick between the left path, the right path, and the middle path as I like to call it. Once you've managed to block him from one side, he'll then pick one of the other two paths that he didn't choose last time. Then, once you've blocked him from that side, he'll go down whatever path that he has yet to travel from the previous two attempts. This is when the second and third steps of the cycle repeat until the end of the night. Once more, this only applies when you are the one to send him back to the main stage, not any of the other animatronics. Before we move on and cover his twin sister, it's important to know the general movement directions for each path that Candy can take, which helps us calculate how long he has before reaching your office. For the left path, he starts in Cam 01, then moves to Cam 02, then Cam 09, then Cam 08, then Cam 07, and then finally Cam 06, meaning that on 20 AI, he takes 25 seconds from Cam 01 to reach your left door. For the right path, he starts in Cam 01, then moves to Cam 02, then Cam 03, and then finally Cam 04, meaning that he takes 15 seconds on 20 AI to reach your right door from Cam 01. Last but certainly not least, for the middle path, he starts in Cam 01, then moves to Cam 02, then immediately to Cam 05, which makes this the shortest path Candy can take to your office. In fact, on 20 AI, he takes just 10 seconds from starting in Cam 01 to reaching the ticket booth window. Next up on the roster is Cindy the Cat. Like her twin brother, she will start in the main stage before moving, and her eyes also glow when night vision is turned off or when she reaches your office. However, her mechanics are completely different compared to Candy's mechanics. She takes a little while longer to activate, using this formula in order to determine when to move from Cam 01 to Cam 12, which means that on 20 AI, she will take anywhere between 24 and 34 seconds on random 0.25 second intervals. After this, she will then use this formula each time to move to Cam 02, then Cam 03, then lastly Cam 04, aka your right door, which on 20 AI is 4 seconds per movement, aka 12 seconds after initially leaving Cam 01 to reach your office, meaning that the total range can be any 0.25 second interval between 36 and 46 seconds. That being said, there are 3 main conditions that pause Cindy's movement, and they are 1. If you're looking directly at the camera she's in, 2. If you're looking at the camera that she's trying to move into, or 3. If another animatronic is currently occupying the camera that she wants to move to. Once all of these conditions have been cleared and her move timer reaches 0, then that's when her path continues on as normal. When she actually reaches your office, that's when she uses the same lock timer and kill timer Candy uses in order to jump scare you, meaning that on 20 AI, she'll jam your door after 6 seconds and kill you after 4 more seconds. If you want to reset her back to camo 1, there are 2 methods in doing so. The first one is probably what most of you newer players have thought of, which is closing the right door, which unfortunately isn't really that effective, especially on blood mode, which we'll get to a bit later. For the first time in the night, she does leave instantly, but for each time she reaches the door after that, she adds 1 second to an aggression factor that causes her to stay for longer and longer each time after the door is shut on her. This means that she'll leave after 1 second on her second attempt of reaching the door, 2 seconds on her third attempt, and so on and so forth. The second and far more practical method of resetting her back to the main stage is to first find whichever camera Cindy is in before she reaches camo 4, which for a quick little reminder can be either cam 12, camo 2, or camo 3. Then you'll have to stare at her for 1 whole second with night vision either on or off before she's teleported right back to camo 1 and temporarily deactivates. This is far more ideal as it uses up less power and on normal mode gives you more opportunities to survive if you somehow do slip up once or twice and she manages to reach your right door. For Cindy's blood mode mechanics, they're honestly pretty simple, but still arguably a step up from her normal mode mechanics. When trying to reset her back to camo 1, watching her without night vision takes a total of 2 seconds instead of just 1 for her to be successfully reset. Watching her with it on remains the same though. More importantly, however, if she reaches your right door, she will stay there forever and will end your game if you've had that door open for long enough. This makes the camera washing mechanic completely necessary if you want to survive, and you'll have to be slightly more strategic on whether or not it's safe to disable night vision in order to send her back, if you can afford to lose up to an extra second. One final note is that you can technically watch her in between those 1 to 2 seconds if you turn on and off night vision in the middle of your staring contest. Now, let's move on to Chester the Chimpanzee. This is the character that you'll usually keep track of the most, as his gimmick involves watching him as much as possible in order to delay his attack at your left door. This is because once he gets there, like Cindy on blood mode, he will never leave and will eventually either jump scare you or cause someone else to kill you. Like the previous 2 animatronics we've discussed so far, this is the formula used for when he jams your door, which again is 6 seconds on 20 AI, and this is the formula used for when he jump scares you, which once more is 4 seconds on 20 AI. His eyes also glow in the dark, similar to the twins, which is arguably more useful for Chester specifically, and I'll cover why later. I know, same old, but I just want to cover all of this information to be as thorough as possible with this guide. With that out of the way, let's cover his more unique mechanics. When first starting the night, he will remain behind his curtains in the camo 9 stage, then peek out after this amount of time has passed, which is 5 seconds on 20 AI, then fully come out using the same formula, which is also 5 seconds on 20 AI, meaning that altogether, you'll have this much downtime, which on 20 AI is a total of 10 seconds before you need to start dealing with him. So, how exactly does stalling Chester work? Well, once he leaves his curtains, a new move counter for him is activated and starts at 0, and it counts up by 1 every millisecond, or 1000 every second. Once this counter reaches whatever this amount would be, which on 20 AI would be 50,000, he will move to the next camera, but instead of resetting to 0, it resets to this equation, which would be 2000 on 20 AI. This process repeats until he reaches your office. His pathing goes from camo 9 to camo 8, then to camo 7, then finally to camo 6, which is your left door. Now, in order to slow his attack, you'll need to stare him down in whatever camera he's in for as much time as you possibly can, as this decreases his move counter by 2 every millisecond, or 2000 every second. Though, keep in mind that his counter can never go below 0 and he can't go back to any previous cameras once he's moved to the next one. Like with Cindy on normal mode, you can have night vision either on or off while watching Chester, and it's just as effective regardless. So, if you're dead set on his location, then you can simply stare at his glowing eyes without much worry, and save some night vision usage for other animatronics. The only case when watching him doesn't work is when Old Candy is on the same camera he's in, as they will take up most of the screen on your monitor. Chester is still there, however, you just can't see him or keep track of his progress. Finally, let's cover Chester's blood mode mechanics, which, in my personal opinion, are the second easiest to get used to and affect the overall gameplay the least, only behind the penguin. When reaching your left door, instead of camping there until he can kill you, he just cuts the power entirely and forces an early game over. For some reason, Candy still jump scares you after this alternative power out finishes, but that's an extremely tiny nitpick that affects nothing anyways. I guess it's just funny to point it out, you know? Anyways, the other change that Chester has is that stalling him with night vision disabled is half as effective compared to having it enabled. This means that with it turned off, his move counter decreases by only 1 every millisecond, or 1000 every second, instead of the usual 2 every millisecond, or 2000 every second. For our final, small-sized, glowing-eyed group of animatronics, here we have the GOAT! The GOAT! AKA the Penguin himself. Or, I guess, the only one that still actually works, you know?
Oh, brother!
Story references aside, some of their normal mode mechanics are honestly quite tricky to talk about, but I'll try my best, so let's start with their simpler mechanics. At the beginning of the night and every time they get reset, they start off camera in the kitchen, then move to cam 12, then cam 02, then cam 03, then cam 04, or the right door, which you might recall is all similar to Cindy's movement path. If another animatronic is in a camera that they're trying to move into, then they'll reset completely back to the kitchen, like how Candy does with the main stage. In order to determine how long to wait for each movement, this formula is used to do so, which on 20AI is 5 seconds for each movement. Again, I don't really need to cover this, but the Penguin's eyes also glow in the dark, either when your monitor's night vision is turned off or if they're at your door. Once they're actually at cam 04, you have until this timer runs out in order to shut it, which instantly resets them back to the kitchen, and on 20AI, they give you 6 seconds to do this. However, instead of jamming the door and then killing you like the others, they actually enter your office directly and just sit under your desk, and this is where they truly start to shine as a character in this game. Now, there's a different timer for the Penguin that is currently being shown on screen, and that constantly runs no matter what, with it running every 10 seconds on 20AI. Every time this timer finishes and resets, they will say their iconic "Can I take your order?" line and randomly close any one of the doors that are currently open. If every single door is shut tight, however, then the timer still continues to cycle and the Penguin still says their line as usual, but nothing else actually happens, which is absolutely peak, but that's besides the point. One thing to note as well is that if the Penguin is the one to close the door, then the initial 0.5% power drain doesn't actually apply here, even if they help you out in blocking another animatronic, which will happen on occasion. It's only when you, as the player, close the door in which this instant drain will actually apply. One more unique mechanic that the Penguin has is their aggression system that causes them to slowly build up speed throughout the night. Basically, every time that they're blocked by the right door, however many milliseconds they have to wait before being blocked is added to their current aggression meter, which would be 0 at the start of the night, but continuously builds up over time. This aggression meter is then divided by 20 and subtracted from the Penguin's normal movement and quote-unquote lock timers. What you really need to take away from this is that the more they wait outside your office, the faster their next movements will be, if that makes any sense. As for the Penguin's blood mode mechanics, well, they really only have one, and it's that they'll instantly start inside your office at the beginning of the night and last there for the entire 6 in-game hours. That might seem like a bit much to handle, but it can honestly be pretty fast to get used to, and it feels the easiest and least significant out of all the blood mode changes overall. Next up are the 3 older animatronic models in this restaurant, with Old Candy being up first. Unlike the much newer models, these set of animatronics don't have glowing eyes. However, with Old Candy specifically, you can determine their location by their loud, distinct humming noise, which can be heard with or without night vision on whichever camera they're in. If they reach your left door, this noise will play in the office regardless. You'll have to be careful though, as similar to the Penguin, they have an aggression meter, which starts at 0 at the beginning of the night, which causes them to wait outside the office for longer than you'd want them to. If you stare at them with night vision turned on, excluding their very first hidden position in cam 10, and them standing right outside the office in cam 06, every millisecond of them watched is added onto this aggression meter, which is how much time they'll wait before leaving, assuming the door is closed, before it resets back to 0 again. As for Old Candy's actual movement path, they'll first start in cam 10 with 3 phases, with them being completely hidden on their first phase, then peeking out of the corner on their second phase, then fully emerging on their third phase. For all intensive purposes, their specific positions on cam 10 will be treated as part of their normal movement path, as they use the same timer to move to different cameras after their grand appearance, which is this formula being shown on screen right now. Just for clarification as well, every movement of theirs on 20AI is between 4 to 6 seconds each. After Cam 10, they will then move to Camo 9, then Camo 8, then Camo 7, then Camo 6, aka the left door. You might notice that their path shares a striking resemblance to Chester's path, and since his mechanic involves staring at him more to stall him, this means that, whenever both animatronics are enabled, you'll need to balance out between watching Chester while simultaneously avoiding Old Candy whenever they appear. Again though, as mentioned previously, Old Candy takes visual priority over Chester, and you can still safely tell whenever they're there alongside him without night vision using both the lack of glowing eyes as well as the signature humming noise. Once Old Candy reaches the left door, you have until this timer ticks down, or 6 seconds on 20 AI, in order to close it regardless of how long they actually need to stay there, as the aggression timer only applies when the door is shut on them. If failing to do so in time, they will then jump scare you using this formula, which on 20 AI is 4 seconds after the door gets locked. Also, do note that, excluding Chester, besides Camo 6 of course, if they try to enter a camera that already has another animatronic in it, then they'll simply wait until said animatronic leaves in order to move into that camera. Now, with their blood mode mechanics enabled, Old Candy will build up aggression regardless if you're watching them with or without night vision, though it's only half as punishing without it, adding every half millisecond watched. However, the more important mechanic that changes with blood mode is that their aggression meter no longer resets to 0 when dealing with them at the door, and will continue to stack the more you watch them. The only time their aggression is at 0 is when the night begins, and in my opinion, these changes make Old Candy one of the hardest animatronics to deal with on Blood 720, alongside Blank with his blood mode mechanics enabled. Speaking of which, Blank the Canvas is next up on the chopping block. Throughout the night, he has 4 stages of progression that he can be in, with the first 3 starting in Cam 11. For his first stage, he'll be looking down at the floor until this much time has passed, which on 20 AI is exactly 8 seconds. Then he'll be looking at the camera for the same amount of time as before, but when he stands up, that's when he uses this formula to determine when to make a mad dash for Camo 5, which on 20 AI ranges from 4 seconds all the way to 12 seconds, with any value in between being fair game. After leaving Cam 11, you'll have until this timer runs out to close the ticket booth door, which gives you 5 seconds on 20 AI, or else Blank will smash your window and jump scare you 7 seconds later on any AI level. If you look at Camo 5 after he's left Cam 11, but before his attack timer is up, then you'll instead have 93 frames, or 1.55 seconds, from when you first looked at that camera to close the door, as that's how long Blank's full swinging animation lasts. Regardless of how you actually made him leave, as long as you prevent him from ending your game, he'll take away 0.25% of your power before returning to his starting progression stage on Cam 11. With the only other animatronic who's able to appear in that camera, as well as enter your office through the ticket booth, being Candy whenever his specific blood mode is activated, if Blank tries to move into that camera when he's already in it, he'll first wait until Candy has been dealt with, then immediately enter that camera. Same rules regarding dealing with him using his attack timer or swinging animation apply here too. Now, Blank's blood mode mechanics are very interesting, as while they are very simple on paper, this unironically makes him tied with Old Candy as one of the hardest animatronics to manage on Blood 720. Instead of having a certain amount of time to close the ticket booth door or review Camo 5 in order to stop Blank, he instead immediately charges for the window as soon as he leaves Cam 11, with him only playing his animation if you're already on the window camera before he moves. This not only makes Blank much harder to predict if you're banking on him not using the extra time from the swinging animation, but it also causes him to instantly break your window in the case that Candy was stalling his movement. So how exactly do you counteract the speed? Well, there's a mechanic specifically on blood mode that allows you to give yourself a bit more time to react to his departure. Whenever you watch Cam 11 with Blank still on the screen, however long you watch him is added to a grace period for when he leaves, with it capping out using this formula, which is the same formula that's used for his normal mode grace period. This means that you can stall his attacking phase for a maximum of 5 seconds on 20 AI. Do note that using night vision actually works better here, as it adds every millisecond watch to this grace period, while having it turned off slices its effectiveness in half, similar to Old Candy's mechanics and technically Chester's as well. Once Blank attacks you and you block him off, that's when his grace period timer resets, meaning that you'll have to watch him before every attack to slow him down. And last but definitely not least, it's time to cover the main antagonist himself, the one of 3 characters who started this whole parade, and the true frontman of this establishment, the Rat. His mechanics act very similar to Candy's mechanics, which is honestly kind of fitting in a way, with his pathing being the main difference. He'll first start in Camp 13, which along with the kitchen is actually inaccessible in this game, then move to Camo 9. His movement formula is the same as most other animatronics, but here it is anyways, just because it's still useful to understand. This means that every movement of his on 20AI is 5 seconds each. Y'all know the deal by now. Anyways, like with Candy, at the start of the night, the rat will randomly choose whether to first go down either the left path or the right path, then alternate between them throughout the night. He can also be reset by any other animatronic, except Chester, if they're in a camera that he wants to move into, but will only switch paths once you specifically have dealt with him at whatever door he's at. This is his formula for when he jams your door, and this is his formula for when he kills you afterwards, which on 20AI are 6 seconds and 4 seconds for each formula respectively. After reaching Camo 9, the path he takes to get to your left door is Camo 8, then Camo 7, then Camo 6, and for your right door, the path is Camo 2, then Camo 3, then Camo 4. So, after going through all of that information, you're all probably thinking that the rat is almost identical to Candy in a way, and you would be correct. However, now it's time to cover his blood mode mechanics. Basically, the rat's pathing will stay the same, however, he will now try to attack you from the camera before the respective door he's supposed to be at. This means that he'll attempt to lock the left door when reaching Camo 7, and the same goes for the right door when reaching Camo 2, meaning that you'll have to react even quicker to him and pay extra attention to those specific cameras on any challenge with his blood mode activated, especially since he's much harder to see on those cameras compared to the actual door cameras. This also adds a neat little quirk that's not really noticeable anywhere else in the game, and that's when the rat is on one of those respective cameras, while Candy, and technically Old Candy or Cindy as well when their aggression is at 0, is at the door on the same side as him, and it's that the sound when they leave will double up and be twice as loud as normal when shutting the door on them, as they're both immediately cleared from it and reset to their starting positions at the exact same time. This won't really happen too much, but it's satisfying to get whenever it does. Alright, that's enough of the technical mumbo jumbo. Now it's time to actually learn how to play the game for once. While these non-max mode presets are completely optional, I'd highly recommend playing through all of them to get a feel for each animatronic's speed and difficulty. Hell, you can do that yourself by customizing your own preset. There will also be a full video of each challenge in this game down in the description below as solid examples. That being said, all of the strategies and tips that I'll be giving you all, including some on normal and blood 720, are from what I personally picked up from each challenge, and as such, it's much better to take what I say from now on with a grain of salt and try to come up with your own strategies, especially using the complete AI breakdown that I covered in the previous section. With that disclaimer out of the way, the first challenge we'll be covering is Cat and Mouse. Despite the rat being on 20AI, this is a pretty easy challenge when you break everything down. Firstly, like a lot of other challenges we'll be covering afterwards, you'll probably be in your monitor for quite some time, but you won't really be needing your night vision enabled for a set amount of time. The main cameras that I would choose to focus on are Camo 1, Camo 4, and Camo 6, as you'll need to keep an eye out for whenever Cindy leaves while also making sure that you shut the door on Candy or the rat on time. You'll want to check on the doors every 2 to 3 seconds so that if either of them appear, you'll be able to react fast enough so that they won't jam your doors. This is also when night vision is most useful, as you can't see the rat on cams without it. One more note, if Cindy leaves her stage, do a quick little check of your doors, deal with whoever is there, then search throughout her cameras, preferably with night vision turned off, and deal with her accordingly. Remember that the cameras she can appear on are Cam 12, Camo 2, or Camo 3 before reaching your right door. You should be well over 50% by the end of the night. Next up are the misfits. With Chester being active, you'll be spending most of your time watching him on Camo 9, or whatever camera he's currently on, of course. It's best to do this without night vision, as he doesn't have his blood mode enabled. The next biggest threat of the night is the penguin if you're not planning to let them in. However, if you want to practice for any future challenges for when they are in your office, then simply don't close the right door on them and deal with their mechanics from there. Who knows, they might even help you out in some cases. Old Candy doesn't seem like much of a threat, but they will move pretty slowly throughout cams. Regardless, since the only times you'll possibly be viewing them on any one of their cameras is when Chester is there, for this challenge, you'll be completely fine as you won't be using night vision for him anyways, and Old Candy doesn't have their blood mode on either. Most of the time, they'll leave your door almost instantly. Finally, we have Blink, which is probably the main reason you'll use night vision on this challenge, even for just a few moments here and there. The best way to deal with him is to occasionally check Cam 11 to see what stage of progression he's at, then close the ticket booth and view Cam 05 once he's left to send him back. Alternatively, you can just check Cam 05 along with the penguin's cams if you don't plan on letting them in, every so often, and quickly close the window door once you see him swinging. In my opinion, this is a bit more lenient on power compared to Cat and Mouse. Chesterfest is an interesting challenge, as it's the first one to have an animatronic's blood mode enabled, which in this case is Candy. Though, with the roster for this night being pretty simple, he won't be too much of an issue, and this ends up being just as easy as the last two presets. Like with the Misfits, you'll spend most of your time watching Chester, without night vision preferably. Every 2 to 3 seconds, you'll then turn on night vision and search for Candy on Cam 04, Cam 05, or Cam 06, in whichever order you prefer, and close the respective door he's at whenever he gets there. You'll also have to make note of Cindy on Cam 01 whenever you feel like she's close to leaving, then deal with her from there on out, usually with night vision disabled. Pretty simple challenge, you most likely will be finishing with a bunch of power remaining. Cat and Mouse 2 is a bit of a step up compared to the original, and that's mainly with the rat's blood mode mechanics. Instead of checking Cam 06 and Cam 04 every 2 to 3 seconds, you'll instead be checking Cam 07 and Cam 03 and close the left or right door whenever he appears on either of them. You'll also have to be a bit wary of old Candy possibly appearing on Cam 07, especially since you'll need night vision even more when trying to spot the rat. With this mode also comes a neat little tip I've used a lot, especially on the max modes whenever applicable. Since Cindy and Old Candy have the same AI levels, specifically 15 each on this challenge, you can sync up their movements pretty well as long as you don't stall either of them for too long. Basically, after you've dealt with Old Candy at the left door, try to check for Cindy on any one of the 3 cameras that she could be at. If she hasn't left the main stage yet, just wait a little bit, possibly after every time you check for the rat, until you can deal with her. It may not seem like much for now, but trust me, it's very helpful later on, and almost prevents the use of needing to check Cam 01 at all. Regardless, this is a bit tighter in power compared to beforehand, so you might be under 50% when you finish the night. Now, extra ketchup is definitely a bit scary, and most likely where you'll start to die a bit if you haven't yet fully grasped this game's mechanics and whatnot. Cindy, Chester, and Blank are all in their max levels, with each of their blood mode mechanics enabled. The most you'll probably need in your office is the window door for Blank, but make sure not to overuse night vision too much as well, even if you'll be in your monitor for most of the night. So, what you'll want to do is to first watch Cam 11 without night vision for around 10 seconds at the immediate start of the night, which will hopefully give you enough of a grace period once Blank comes for you. Afterwards, this is when Chester becomes your main priority for the rest of the night, and you'll definitely be needing night vision for him now. The cycle is then just staring at him every 5 seconds before checking on Cindy and Blank. If he leaves, quickly view Cam 05 and close up the ticket booth. Assuming you've dealt with Cindy, which now takes 2 seconds to send her back without night vision, then you can safely watch Cam 11 after Blank's attack for some extra leeway once again, preferably with night vision disabled, before once again returning to Chester and turning on night vision. This challenge is even tighter in power since you'll have night vision on for far longer than before. Kitty Fever is the last challenge preset that doesn't have every single animatronic turned on in at least some capacity. You can see that, as the name implies, the cats themselves aren't too big of a threat, with Cindy being completely deactivated. That being said, you'll still have your night vision on for most of the time when keeping track of Chester, and you'll once again need to solve Blank after every time he's dealt with. The initial cycle from extra ketchup actually carries over to this night as well, just without Cindy. Instead, you'll need to check the left and right doors every 2 to 3 seconds, alongside keeping track of Blank, after every Chester checkup in order to deal with the rat, and very occasionally the 2 candies. Speaking of which, Old Candy moving pretty slowly can kind of screw you over with Chester, but since their blood mode isn't on, it's best to first check his camera without night vision after dealing with everything else, in case Old Candy's hum is present. If so, then do your best to avoid that camera until some time has passed. Oh, and how could we forget? The penguin. Now, they'll be able to start in your office, so make sure to deal with them whenever they close any one of your doors in order to drain as little power as possible, because obviously you're going to need that power for everything else you'll be doing. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you finish this night with next to no power at first. And now, it's finally time to get into our first max mode. The base, normal 720 with everyone at their max AI levels, but none yet have their blood mode mechanics enabled. Since my main strategies for this mode have worked just as well for the single patty and double patty presets, I'd recommend using them for those challenges as well, especially if you want to build up to 720. Once more, I do want to emphasize that these tips are from my own personal experiences and what I've picked up throughout my time playing this game. So, if they don't work out as well, then feel free to experiment with what you think works best for you, or hell, even ask other people who have beaten this in Blood 720 on what they do. I recommend checking out the maxmode list community, which both the website and the Discord I will have linked in the description down below, alongside everything else obviously. Now, to start off the night, you'll need to flip up your monitor and switch to camo 9. Chester won't be out of his curtains until 10 seconds have passed, but it's useful to be ready regardless, especially since using the monitor without night vision doesn't take away any power. Speaking of which, there's no need to actually turn it on while watching Chester due to both his normal mode mechanics as well as Old Candy's normal mode mechanics, but there's not much harm in doing so if that makes the night slightly easy for you. Just be careful of Old Candy, of course. Once Chester has fully left the stage, this is when the night truly begins. For every 2 to 3 seconds, make sure to cycle between keeping an eye on Chester, then checking cameras 06, 05, and 04 with night vision on to deal with Candy, the Penguin, the Rat, or Blink when they're at their respective doors, ready to attack. You'll have to deal with them pretty quickly, as the first 3 animatronics kill timers are pretty short in this mode, and Blink only gives you around a second and a half to react with him swinging his arm at you. What I personally do is that I keep night vision off when looking at Chester's camera, then whenever I need to look at the main 3 door cameras, I first switch to camo 6, turn on night vision there, then check it, camo 5, then camo 4, before turning off my night vision and switching back to Chester's camera. If anyone is at my doors, I quickly shut them off before either switching back to Chester or quickly checking my door cameras again in case I miss someone. This allows me to be able to deal with everyone pretty efficiently without increasing Old Candy's aggression. One more important tip before we move on is that, like I mentioned before, Cindy's movements and Old Candy's movements are synced fairly well with each other, even if you get fairly unlucky with the RNG and whatnot. What I mean by that is that when Old Candy reaches your left door, you can first shut them off to reset them back to cam 10, then quickly search for Cindy on whichever camera she could be in, as she's left the main stage by this point. If you're unsure about any of the other animatronics, you can first monitor their locations and prevent them from killing you before Cindy reaches your right door, but you'll have to be quick on this in order to keep the rhythm with her and Old Candy. It's not the end of the world if she does make it there, as this is normal 720 after all, but it's important to not lose track of her too often, or else you'll need to spend more time checking her and Old Candy separately. One last reminder, you can stare at Cindy without night vision to make her go away, but if you want to physically see her and not just her glowing eyes to make sure that you're not staring at Candy or something, then go ahead. Once you've mastered all these tips and tricks, you'll beat 720 in no time. However, that's not the end of the story, since we have just one more max mode to cover, and that is... Excluding uncapped AI and self-imposed challenges, this is the hardest thing that you can do in this entire game. This mode, let's just say, is not for the faint-hearted, and it'll take you a while to even get far in, let alone actually complete. Not only will your first time beating Blood 720 probably be a power-up completion, but you'll have to be a lot faster and more observant with everything going on. And trust me, some deaths will feel a bit out of your control due to the amount of micromanaging you're doing. Eventually though, after a lot of fails, it will become possible and you will manage to beat it. Anyways, let's actually talk about the strategies. The first change when starting the night comes right away, with the Penguin immediately being in your office and closing a random door every 10 seconds. My tips I have for them is pretty simple. Just quickly flip down your monitor and reopen whatever door they closed in order to drain as little power as possible, with a few exceptions however. Basically, if Old Candy or Blink are about to attack and the Penguin closes the respective doors that they'll be at, then leave them closed until they've successfully been dealt with. It's a pretty reasonable thing to do, but it can help tremendously considering that the doors the Penguin closes doesn't instantly take away 0.5% of your power, and it allows you to deal with any other important concerns. Now it's time to get into the cycle itself. Once everything loads in, flip up your monitor and stare at Blink's camera, cam 11, without night vision in order to build up the grace period timer for his first attack until the Penguin closes one of your doors. After immediately reopening said door, switch to camo 9 and turn on night vision, as Chester by this point has fully emerged from his curtains, and due to his blood mode mechanic, watching him without night vision makes stalling him much harder to do. The cycle from now on is somewhat similar to normal 720, but with a few major changes that make it much more difficult. Every 2 to 3 seconds, instead of checking cams 06, 05, and 04, You'll instead be checking cams 07, 05, and 03, as Candy can now be at your window, and the rat can attack from the cameras before their adjacent doors. Every time after Blank attacks the ticket booth, you'll have to spend some more time at cam 11 in order to build up your grace period again, preferably with night vision on this time, as using it builds up the time a lot faster, and you need as much time as you can get in Blood 720 to properly deal with everyone else. The most optimal time you'll want to do this is when Old Candy is on the same camera as Chester, as you can't watch him there anyways, but this isn't always going to be the case, so don't try to use this as an indicator too often. Due to spending less time focusing on camo 6 and camo 4, this is also when you'll actually have to predict when Candy will move to your left and right doors, as you'll instead keep track of him when he's on camo 7 or camo 3 instead. One more thing to note, if Candy is at the ticket booth right when Blank is about to attack, assuming you have enough time on your grace period, shut the window door, reopen it, then quickly switch to camo 5 and shut the door on Blank as well. It's a pretty quick set of events, but you'll eventually get the hang of it once you get enough of these combos. One animatronic that becomes a much more important issue in Blood 720 is Old Candy. Since staring at them on your monitor, regardless if you have night vision on or off, increases their aggression, and since that aggression is permanent throughout the entire night, you'll need to quickly react whenever they're on a camera that you're looking at, most notably when you're looking at Chester. Usually just clicking away and spending more time on some other cameras, or just in your office for around 4 to 6 seconds works best. Like with normal 720, Old Candy and Cindy are synced up, at least for part of the night, so whenever you shut off Old Candy, you can then look at Cindy right after. However, since you'll most likely look at Old Candy more and more as the night progresses, dealing with them can be much more stressful, especially the longer they camp at your door. Usually, at about 3 AM to 4 AM, this is when I overlap shutting the left door and dealing with whoever else I need to deal with, especially Cindy, instead of just waiting until Old Candy leaves. This also gives you another opportunity to look at Blank's camera if you need more time on your grace period, though do keep in mind once again that it caps out at 5 seconds. Now, let's talk about the final stretch. The last hour of the night. 5 AM. This is when you're probably the most nervous, when you have around 20% power or less, and when Chester is just one camera away from prematurely ending your game. The main thing that I'll tell you is to stay calm and focused and continue the cycle that you've done for the past 4 hours of the night. Remember, it's not over until it's over, and if you really need to, you can save some extra power by watching Chester without night vision. Once you run out of power, you can only hope that you're close enough to 6 AM for the power out sequence to save you. Since the whole thing lasts for exactly 25 seconds, you can force a power out after 5 minutes and 35 seconds of the night have passed, though it is very difficult to know if you don't have a timer on hand with you. If you weren't close enough, that's fine, at least you gotta run to 5 AM, and all you need to do is try and try again. Take some breaks if you need to. If you didn't make it to 6 AM though, then maybe I should have a timer on my screen just to know.
Never mind.
Yes, let's go. I think I was on the brink of death there. Oh my god, dude. Congratulations. You finally beat Blood 720. Let's go. Let's go. Pink Slip, Mary Schmidt. Notice of termination. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this guide was useful to at least some of you out there. If you want, you can consider leaving a like on this video and subscribing to my channel, you know, the usual or whatever. I make similar challenge videos like this, most of them quite literally just being max mode completions, speedruns, no-hit challenges, you name it. Hopefully I plan to make more scripted videos and guides like this one in the foreseeable future, especially regarding Deltarune and, of course, Five Nights at Candy's. Anyways, hopefully I'll be seeing all of you sooner or later. Take care for now, and stay safe.